In this video, I'll be talking about two substantive moral theories, virtue ethics and ethics of care. Virtue ethics was first written down by Aristotle about 2,400 years ago. This is what's referred to as a teleological theory. A teleological theory is one that assumes that people have an inherent purpose. Aristotle thought that everything had an inherent purpose. So in the same way that the purpose of a pen is to write and the purpose of a computer is to search the internet, he thought that humans have an inherent purpose. That purpose is whatever it was that make humans uniquely special. So it wasn't the fact that we can run or climb or fly, because there are other animals can do that just as well. It also wasn't the fact that we pursue happiness, that everything we do is to pursue happiness in some sense, because other animals are the same. Even if there are different things that make animals happy, in that way we are the same as them. What's different about us, what's uniquely human, is that we are the only animal that pursues happiness rationally. And this is all according to Aristotle. So for him, the human purpose is the rational pursuit of happiness. The word for that is a telos. The human telos was the rational pursuit of happiness. In order to reach that goal, to realize the best versions of ourselves, Aristotle thought that we had to have training and education and resources. So for example, it's not possible to be a good person and reach happiness and be generous unless you have something that you can give away. The idea was that the rational pursuit of happiness requires that a person be virtuous, to have character traits that are good. Now, good character traits are a balance. Everyone has the same character traits, but we all have them to different extents, in different portions. The idea is that a virtuous person is someone who uses rationality to find a balance, so that they don't have too much of a characteristic, nor too little, so they're not in excess and they're not deficient. They have to find the right balance, called the golden mean. This depends on context. So for example, if a person is a firefighter, then they need to have bravery. They can't have too much bravery where they're running into a fire without equipment, but they can't have too little bravery where they won't go into a burning building. So for them, the right balance involves a fair amount of bravery. On the other hand, if a person is an accountant, then they should not be as brave as a firefighter. What's virtuous for a firefighter would actually be reckless for an accountant. So the idea is that the right balance has to be figured out rationally depending on a person's circumstance. What this means is that there are no moral rules according to virtue ethics. There are no imperatives, there are no duties. What there is an idea of an ideal person, a virtuous person, and then you'd ask yourself, what would that person do in this situation? Now again, it's not one person who is right for every category. If you are a librarian, you'd ask yourself, what would a virtuous librarian do? The next substantive ethical theory is called the ethics of care. It's also called the feminist ethics of care. This one was first written down in 1981 by a psychologist named Carol Gilligan. It was based on the idea that our modern understanding of human development at the time was based on observations of children, but it was always male children. Most of the standards for cognitive development, benchmarks for how far people should be along at certain points, were based on observations of little boys. This, Carol Gilligan argued, was a very biased way of gathering information about human nature. What she argued was that what was likely overlooked was that individualism, which is very much valued in little boys, was given priority over the ability to form strong relationships, something more usually associated with little girls. This is actually a feature of several of the other substantive ethical theories. They're very individualistic. Utilitarianism is about your actions or the rules that you follow. Deontology is about your duty and your intentions. And virtue ethics is about your character, as we've just seen. Ethics of care, on the other hand, makes the observation that all ethical situations actually involve other people. Ethics of care is a type of virtue ethics, so in some sense it's teleological, talking about human purpose, but it's different since it only involves character traits that involve other people. So what makes ethics of care different than the other substantive ethical theories is that being ethical is about being good in relationships. It is not in terms of individualistic character traits like virtue ethics is, the virtue ethics version as written down by Aristotle. Here, to be a good person, you have to be a caring person. That's why it's called the ethics of care. Aristotle's virtue ethics looked at traits like bravery and generosity and honesty. The ethics of care, on the other hand, looks at traits which specifically relate to how good or caring a person is in relationships. First is attentiveness. This is being able to recognize others' needs. Second is responsibility. This is taking it upon yourself to care for another person. Third is competence. Competence involves the ability to actually follow through on caring for another person. Unlike deontology, for example, where good intentions are all that matter, for the ethics of care, you have to both have the right attitude, but you also have to be good at helping people. Fourth is responsiveness. This is the ability to consider people's actual circumstances and conditions. So for example, if someone has unusual needs, emotional or physical, then in order to be a caring person in a relationship with that person, you have to be able to be responsive to their particular needs. Think about what this would mean for dealing with children. The other ethical theories don't have a special category for children. It's a little bit hard to understand how a child is supposed to be an ethical person according to deontology, since the rationality isn't fully developed. It's also a problem for utilitarianism, where in general, children are not good at considering other people's happiness. For virtue ethics, there's not even an expectation that people will become virtuous until they have a fairly well-developed character. On the other hand, for the ethics of care, children are special. Thank you for watching.